So, Sophia, it's nice to have you here on our podcast. You haven't told your story yet. You could start and talk about a little bit of your background.
I just grew up in this entrepreneurial spirit, and I was always super curious about what my mom actually does at her PC. I was always super interested in this entrepreneurial content and stuff, what you can do. And I actually find a nice university who have this focus on startup management, which is when I always tell it here in the Beta House and something, all are super surprised. Yeah, okay, you can study startup management.
Yeah, for real, I haven't heard of it. There's this classical business administration, but to study startup management. So, how was this for you? Do you really felt like they gave you? This sounds weird, but did they really give you valuable knowledge when you think about it now?
Yes, of course. Before I studied this, I always have the feeling, okay, I want to know how to actually build business models. How can I build products? This was the reason why I decided to study this.
It is pretty much, it's not a guarantee, but you might be good at what you're doing.
Yes.
And because you will improve, because you will like it, and you will wake up in the morning and say, yay, instead of,
BotTalk podcast.
Actually, my parents are both self-employed, so it wasn't my plan to end up in a startup or an IT startup actually. So we have. I come from northern Germany, and we have a tourism for tourism accommodations, a company, and we have also a company for building houses. So and my mother had a practice for naturopathy, and that's why I just grew up in this entrepreneurial spirit, and I was always super curious about what my mom actually does at her PC. When I was just 10 years old, it was for me super fun just sitting next to my mom, watching her working. A bit nerdy maybe.
Yeah, weird hobby. But weirdo.
Yes, but for me it was pretty exciting. And I always want to understand what you actually do. And I'm always curious about it to understand the whole story behind it and how everything is working. So this is my main passion, that I want to understand who is the company working, who's the whole economy of the world is working, and just to get it the logic behind it. So I'm always super logical and analytical, and that's why I always sat next to my mom and see her working. And when I was around 12, I started also working a bit for her. So we have in the tourism accommodation, we have a platform. It was a super small booking.com, but it was just for the regional one. And there I started working, and I done was on phone with the guests who were interested and booking an accommodation. I built the website and make the invoices after we have for our customers, so
Wow.
The provision and everything.
At 12 years old?
Yeah, this done when I was a bit older,
Okay.
but I started
Yeah, but
this.
still.
So and I worked there a long time, because when you're 12 you're not allowed legally to work that much, so it's super specific. But then I just started getting started helping out in these companies of my parents. That's why. And when I was 16, I also started when we have new employees, just to introduce them and teach them what they need to do. So I just already getting in this role, how to be the boss of the company, something. So
the manager.
yes, right, this managing position. But in the beginning it was super overwhelming for me, because I was 16 and the other worked for us was 40, and then I'm sitting there teaching them what they do, and they also called me boss, and it was and also talking in a formal way with me. It was okay, no, I'm just yeah, okay, my mother owns the company, but I'm also just an employee. And if I'm just a kid, it's no reason for me that she's calling me boss. And this was a situation for me which was like super insecure. And I just say, no, just say you to me, it's fine. She, no, I don't want it. I'm going to talk in the formal way with you. Okay. This is actually one point where I just realized, okay, I'm doing like this entrepreneur role a bit. And after my high school, I decided to make a dual study, like an integrated degree program in the tourism economy, because I was always in contact with tourism, and this was just a field I get to know a lot. And then I worked in a hotel here in Hamburg, and my university was in Munich. And then I always like fly from Hamburg to Munich, and I was always on the go. And
wow, this seems like being on the go a lot. So traveling for work a lot, even when you were still at university.
Yes, it was super interesting because it was not that boring study life actually what you've done, and it was always different actually. And then you have like the shifts at the hotel, which are like pretty early in the morning or in the night or something. And then you need to figure out how can I combine it with my studies. So you need like a really good time management.
Oh yeah, time management should be on point.
Yes, otherwise it's not perfect. Yes, and there I learned like lots of these skills, like also managing your customers, like the people in the hotel, the guests. There I learned a lot about how to deal with people, because now it's like pretty good for me when I'm talking with customers, I know actually how I could like talk to them, and I kind of know like what they want to hear from me, because this was like a super specific point which I learned there. But after I finished it, I had like the feeling, okay, like hotel is nice, but I don't want to work in the operations in the hotel like forever, because as I said, I always have the feeling I want to understand the whole logic behind it, and just working in the hotel in the operation this wouldn't fulfill like what I actually want to do. So, and then I decided to study my master's, and I studied business development and focusing on startup management, because I was always like super interested in this entrepreneurial content and stuff, what you can do. And I actually find like a nice university who have like just this focus on startup management, which is when I always like tell it here in the beta house and something, all are super surprised. Yeah, okay, you can study startup management.
Yeah, for real, I haven't heard of it. There's like this classical business administration, but to study startup management. So how was this for you? Do you really felt like they gave you, this sounds weird, but did they really gave you like valuable knowledge when you think about it now?
Yes, of course. Before I studied this, I always have the feeling, okay, I want to know how to actually build business models. How can I build products? This was the reason why I decided to study this. And this is actually also what I learned there, because before I always know, okay, yeah, there needs to be like a business model behind every company, and there also needs to be like a logic how I'm gonna produce like my product, but I didn't actually know how I'm gonna do this strategically.
Sure.
And there I learned all the stuff, like with the business model canvas, how I can build this, or like there's also from St. Gallen University, this is like one of the, from Switzerland, it is super famous university for entrepreneurs. So like sometimes they said like they are the good entrepreneurs are born. So, but this stuff I also learned because St. Gallen make like lots of books and like really pretty good content, which I also learned in my university. And then the other part was just like developing the product, because normally everyone thinks, okay, yeah, I have like a nice idea, and then I just build the product until it's perfect, and then I'm gonna try to sell it. But that this way is not working,
Sure. Yeah, it usually does not, unfortunately.
But the most of the people think, okay, yeah, I'm just sticking to my brilliant idea and see and make it perfect, and then I want to sell it. And then always, like, lots of people fail because then they see, okay, what I developed was just like a super personal product for my need, but the need is not like for everyone.
So there's not like a customer for your product.
Yes.
And
right.
you need a customer, obviously.
Yeah, otherwise you can't make revenue and you can't run a business.
Makes sense.
And there I actually learned like how you're gonna produce the product when you have like a nice idea. So that you need to find out the actual need from your potential customer, and also who are your potential customer, and how can I get the information from my potential customer. So it's always like called early evangelisten. This is the customers who also felt the same problem than you have, and with them you can talk about the problem, because normally when it's just like a general problem which have lots of people, but sometimes they didn't know that they have this problem. You first need to tell your customers, oh, you have this problem.
Okay.
But first you need to find these early evangelisten where you can discuss it and see, do you have the same problem as me, and or is it just like super personal and specific, and how can we figure out what the actual need is, and then after that building the product on this. And then you can like taking a prototype and go to the market and say, what do you think about this? And then you can make like lots of iterations. So it's like pretty important when you have a product that you're not getting it ready 2 years until it's perfect. Try to push it on the market as early as possible. So then it's easier for you. You don't burn that much money.
Yeah.
And also you can like improve the product way faster, and you have just like a huge advantage compared to your competitors.
Sure. So this is like something I feel we've done in the last years at BotTalk since you came. So we did something which was not perfect. We pushed out like an example of a product, for example, and we tested if it runs well or if it does not. And later we decided to like whether to improve it or just to leave it. So I think this is a great learning. My question would be, this is maybe a bit critical, but like university seems to be like very theoretical. It seems to me that there's just so much like, oh yeah, do this and do this written in the books, but when you come to real life, like every startup is different, every product is different, the real life is different. Do you really think that this had still an impact, or did you really learn valuable lessons there, which you could actually use in your work now?
Yes, I would say yes, but you need to say that need to see that I also have like 2 studies which are very practical. It was always practical orientated. Okay. It's not like that I'm going to like a normal university where you just learned like super stuff just from the literature. So it was always the focus on my studies, the dual study, and also in my master's, that we have like the bridge between the business or the real world and also what we learn in the university. So it was always like super connected. So in the bachelor I worked in the hotel and I have the connection, which was pretty good. So I always can like combine my experience in the university directly at work, which was pretty good, because then you also learned stuff easier, and it's more fun to learn it actually. Absolutely. And it's way better. And in the masters it was also that we have, I think I had just like 2 written exams and the rest was just project work.
Wow, okay.
So we have always a project. Sometimes we have a corporate partner from the business or from a company, and otherwise we were in a group and there was just one topic we get, and then we need to develop a new idea, a new company, a business plan, a new business model. So it always was project work, which was then way more interesting. So like the 2 years I studied my master's, we were always continuously working on new business ideas and see if it's possible or not, talking to the customers. So actually trying everything out what we are now doing in our startup. That's why it was for me like super valuable what I actually learned there, and now it's for me like way easier doing this stuff, because when I started at BotTalk, I never thought that I will be at a podcast, be that much before the camera actually, because I'm not like this super person who loves to be for the camera and talking that much. I'm more like the person who's sitting in his office and thinking about strategic stuff and working on my own on like all this. And that's why it's now like easier for me to do all the stuff here. Sure. And just like being brave, just try it out, and just having like this mentality of, okay, just do some stuff. If it's fail, it's fail, but you have still a learning from it.
Okay, this really seems like you did a lot of practical work, which is surprising to me because, yeah, just as I said, university seems very practical, but this is so cool because you had actual experience, and I suppose you talked to actual customers, so actual companies that existed. This is amazing. I feel like there's not much of stuff or like university courses like that, but they are so useful and they seem very interesting, I suppose. So maybe one question to that. Is there any advice you would give to like your younger self studying startup management from your position now, or just to like everyone studying or wishing to be in a sort of position working towards something like that in the future?
Maybe I always try to figure out what I actually want to, like where I see me in the future and what was like support this way I want to go. And maybe this is also like a lesson I learned from my parents. They always said like, yeah, we know you're like young now and you're now starting to study and work later, but you just need to have in mind, okay, to think about your life when you're like older.
So you're like bigger goal.
Yes, right. I mean, this is always like a hard question when you're young, but
sure.
Don't start. First, I was like super interested in archaeological. I actually don't know the actual word.
I don't know.
So in just like be in Egypt and see like what there's some interesting stuff on the ground. So this was like super nice because I also like history. But then my mother said, okay, but are you sure that you want to study it? Because you can't do it here in Germany. It's not possible. Yeah. Maybe yes, in just like some museums where you work. But
yeah, museums.
Is that something what you want to do in the future? And I was like, no, actually not. So then I just need to find out what I can do where I want to live, or what is like the perfect picture maybe in the future, and just try out find out what are my strengths, because it's always like good to work on your strengths than on your weaknesses, because I mean everyone has weakness. I'm super happy that you are doing the marketing in social media. I know how it actually works, but it's not my passion doing this. So, and then it's always better to focus on what you can actually, and where are you like, your passion, and then it's way more fun learning.
It is pretty much, it's not a guarantee, but you might be good at what you're doing, and because you will improve, because you will like it, and you will wake up in the morning and say yay instead of So definitely a valuable lesson. What surprised you the most about the startup world when you came here after your studies?
Surprised. I actually know how the world is a bit, because my parents are both entrepreneurs. So I had an idea that when I'm going into like a small startup, which have just a few employees, that my role won't be just like, okay, here is an admin role, you can do this, or here's a sales role. I know that would be like super flexible. But this is like the kind of work I like.
Yeah.
I don't like it to have a 9-to-5 job, always the same tasks I need to do. I really like it to have like different exercises, and also having tasks which I never worked on before. And then you're always pushing yourself, try to be like more brave, just doing some stuff you never done before. And yeah, sometimes you thought, okay, yeah, I'm doing this, and afterwards like, was it a good idea?
Yeah.
And then you're just overthinking a bit. But I always learned that it was good that I say, okay, I'm just doing it, just say yes to it and do it. Because this is always like pushing you forward, and then you grow. And this is like really, really nice in the startup life, which I really like.
Absolutely, yeah. So what would you say are the advantages of working at a startup versus like a real 9-to-5 job where everything is clear, maybe in a bigger company where everyone has like a very clear position and a clear role? What is something you like about it?
I worked in like a bigger company and a hotel, but it was still like medium size. I never was like in this super huge companies, but I never have the motivation to work there because I always want to work like in smaller companies because there I have like way more opportunities, and also my ideas I can just like push it, and then I have a higher chance that I can do it. But when I worked in this medium-sized company, it was always like kind of hard for me when I have like my boss. So I was a student and I need to accept them, but sometimes it was like a bit hard, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Because like some manager, when they are in their position, they really stuck to it, and they want that you like kind of
not like obey, but
yes,
like really stick to your position and don't do more, don't do less.
Right. And this was something which is not comfortable for me. I don't really like it, and I also don't like it when someone is like super sticking on his role name and say,
very bossy.
No, I'm the manager and you have to do this what I'm saying. So this is something I don't like, because I think this also kills the motivation of the people.
Absolutely.
And for me, I can't handle that good. So this is absolutely a weakness for me. So now I'm pretty happy that I'm here and I can just do like the stuff what I'm doing, and it's always like on one level. It's everything is I'm just working eye on eye, like something like this, and it's not depending if you're like 18 or 40. It's everyone has like something what he can do good, and then everyone is bringing in his work, and then it's going to be good, and then it's a nicer work actually.
Thank you so much for your time, Sophia. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's very inspirational, and it's a great like insider view of our company, because we're a very like colorful mix of different people that somehow sit in a room and try to figure out how to make a startup work and make the world a little bit better with our product.